Monday here in Toronto, Ontario. Finally, the trade deadline has come and gone. Joining me now is NorthStar Bets' very own Steven Psihogios. Stevie, there was a whole lot of moves actually, surprisingly, on deadline day, the subsequent deals leading up to deadline day. Let's just get right into it. Who do you think, or sorry, which team do you believe stock elevated, or which teams maybe stock dissipated following the NHL trade deadline?
I think one team that I was very surprised at their lack of moves at the deadline was
Mhm.
the Boston Bruins because I thought that we were going to see something from Boston one way or the other. They really all they did was add Patrick Maroon, which maybe gives them a little bit of toughness, just someone who can fight some fires in a battle against the Florida Panthers or the Toronto Maple Leafs. But they didn't really go in any way that I was expecting. The term you heard a lot out of Boston was hockey move from the
Mhm.
Boston Bruins, and you didn't see that happen. Now there's the rumors that Linus Allmark nixed the deal that would have sent him to the Los Angeles Kings, potentially for Pierre-Luc Dubois. That's the name that kind of seems to be the one that was going back. So that was maybe a move that should have happened that didn't happen. But overall, I expected them to be a little bit more either aggressive or forward thinking this year, and they really didn't go either way. So that was a team to me that was a big loser at the deadline.
Well, I think they made the deal for Andrew Peak from Columbus, which was a defensive depth move. When I look at it, I think the Leafs were to me were the biggest loser in this situation is because when you look at the Eastern Conference and the landscape of it, I think the Panthers elevated their stock. Of course, you weren't a big fan of the Tarasenko deal, but then they get a guy on Kalapozu who's a great locker room guy, a battler, a veteran guy, a captain type material player. They, of course, then you have Carolina who added the biggest fish in Jake Gensel. They brought in Andre Kuznetsov. Sorry, they brought in Kuznetsov. The Rangers made some moves. They brought in Wenberg. Boston, I felt, yes, they added Pat Maroon. They added Andrew Peak. So everybody in the Eastern Conference kind of made moves where the Leafs, they, of course, added Joel Edmondson and they added Labushkin and they added Connor Dewar to the fourth line. But I just felt that the now the gap between the Rangers, the Hurricanes, the Bruins, and the Panthers has increased, and the Leafs are the clear cut, maybe the fifth best team in the Eastern Conference.
One thing I was surprised about with Toronto was the fact that they didn't go for more depth scoring. I like Edmondson. I actually think he fits really well because they needed help on the penalty kill. Dewar, I thought there was more to be done at forward. You just saw last week they
Mhm.
played 2 games against the Bruins. They scored 1 goal in both of those games. I thought they needed someone who can step up in a game like that and provide a key goal when those top guys aren't going. Because let's face it, we've seen those guys time and time again come short in big moments. And if we're looking at winners to get a little more positive about this
Mhm.
whole thing, one team I think you got to put there in the winner category, obviously Vegas was the big winner, but another team I really like what they did was the Buffalo Sabres. Now they're not going to get talked about because they're not pushing for a Stanley Cup. They're not going to be in the playoffs. But I love the addition of Bowen Byram, dishing him or acquiring him for Casey Middleton. I thought was perfect. Look at this defense now moving forward. You got a young kid in Owen Power who's only going to continue to grow to a potential top pairing defenseman. You've got Rasmus Dahlin who's already cut his teeth at the NHL level and proven he's one of the elite offensive minded blue liners in the game. And now you have Bowen Byram, who injuries have marred a lot of his career. But when healthy, this is a guy who can play at both ends of the ice and just needed to go somewhere where he's going to get more run than he was in Colorado, being overshadowed by Cale Makar on that back end. So one sneaky winner, a team that likely won't get talked about because they're
Mhm.
irrelevant this season, is Buffalo.
I 100% agree with you. I felt that Middlestat deal helped out Colorado a lot. I thought Colorado had a very nice deadline. Now, once they get Landeskog back, if he comes back for the playoffs, that is a very, very scary team. Again, goaltending is their biggest, their Achilles heel, I think. Vegas, we'll touch on that in a second, but I do agree with what you said about Bowen Byram, a guy who's the perfect modern day NHL defenseman. You look at him, he can skate, he can handle the puck. He's just so smooth out there. And like you mentioned, he was never going to get his true shine in Colorado behind Cale Makar, but now he's part of a young Buffalo Sabres decor where, let's face it, going into next season, them, alongside the Montreal Canadiens, really need to start pressing to make the playoffs. The pressure is on both those organizations. Okay, you have a lot of young players. It's time to push forward towards the playoffs. But let's go to Vegas. What was your immediate reaction? Again, the Hannafin trade, we kind of knew they were going to be involved in that, but then to pull out Thomas Hurdle out of nowhere, right? How does Vegas just keep on getting these big name players and staying ultra aggressive, Stevie?
Well, look, there's the saying, and you hear it more and more these days, pro sports are a business, right? In
Mhm.
Vegas, they make the tough business decisions. They are not afraid. They're likely going to have to move on from some key players this offseason in March or so, and other players whose contracts are coming up because of this trade. But they say, forget it. We just won the Stanley Cup. We will want to go and win it again. They go and add a guy in Thomas Hurdle. They're not afraid to switch up the names and the faces on that team. They're willing to do what it takes to win. And I think a lot of people say it's a shady way of doing business, but hey, it works both ways.
Mhm.
Players will go where the dollar is the best, right? They go where they're going to get their bread buttered. So if it works the same way, it's not like I'm siding with these big multi-million dollar teams over the
Mhm.
players, but they also have to make business decisions. And I'm all for business decisions when the team's interests are in winning. And that's abundantly clear with Vegas. If you're a fan of the Golden Knights, you have to be happy knowing that your team does whatever they can. And my initial reaction was, I'm not surprised because this team is willing to do the out of the ordinary, the unthinkable to make it happen.
Absolutely, Stevie. When I look at the Vegas Golden Knights and everybody just complaining and oh, this is unfair, they're cheating, the best team money can buy, all that stuff. The rules are available to every other general manager in the NHL. And other teams do it. The Tampa Bay Lightning have done it to win a Stanley Cup before. The Maple Leafs have been doing it for years. They call it Robidas Island. It doesn't work out for them because they're so top heavy. The Oilers have done it. This is a move that everybody does, but because, like you mentioned, the Vegas Golden Knights are a franchise that have an aggressive owner that have been aggressive ever since they've been in the NHL. They acquired all those picks, and what did they do? They got in the Petrangelo, they got rid on Carlson. They didn't get Carlson, but they were in on him. They got Eichel. Every single big name player available, they are right in the middle in the thick of things, right? And also, Vegas is a desirable destination. No state income tax. It's winning culture. It's a great city. And also, the weather is awesome too, right? So, Vegas is set up perfectly for the future. They're in trouble right now. They will make the playoffs, but they're struggling. I do think they'll turn around once Hannafin and eventually Hurdle and all the guys get back in the lineup. Um, Another team that had a very good deadline was the Winnipeg Jets. Adding Tyler Toffoli, of course, they added Sean Monahan a month or so ago, but then they go into Vancouver to play the Canucks, a team that was riding on a 3-game win streak. I didn't play very good against Anaheim. Played a gritty game against the Kings. Went to Vegas, beat those same Golden Knights, and then what do? Have their best period in that first period against the Winnipeg Jets, 5-0. So when I look at this, Stevie, and according to the NorthStar Bets right now, they're pretty close to winning. I believe in the Western, win the Stanley Cup. Excuse me. The Canucks are right now at plus 1,200. The Jets are at plus 1,250. Both those teams are interesting. Which one do you think has a better chance of coming out of the Western Conference?
Look, you have to be honest with yourself and you have to say the Vancouver Canucks. They're going to play a wild card team. I mean, I'm sure you as a Canucks fan, you're hoping it's not the Vegas Golden Knights because
No.
you might flip your stance on LTIR very quickly if it is the Vegas Golden Knights in round one. But I have to say it's them because they're likely either going to draw Nashville or maybe Los Angeles,
Mhm.
potentially Vegas if things don't move up for the Golden Knights moving forward. And, those are more preferable matchups than the likely first round series the Winnipeg Jets are going to have playing the Colorado Avalanche or the Dallas Stars. Those
Mhm.
are probably, if you're going to earmark it, the two teams with the best Stanley Cup odds to come out of the Western Conference in Dallas and Colorado. So for Winnipeg to have to play one of those likely in the first round, it's tough. It's not a good draw. The West is deep this year. There's a lot of good teams in that conference. And I would rather be Vancouver avoiding most of those good teams come the first round of the playoffs. And that's why I'd bet them over the Jets right now.
You're finally starting to drink the Kool-Aid, Stevie. I love it. And here's the thing with the Canucks, right? They had that little struggle a couple weeks before, after the All-Star break. They bring in Lindholm. They talked about last week the potential trade to flip him back to Boston in a three-way trade for Gensel. But now that that's all passed, the Pedersen contract is over with. All the outside noise now, all the other stuff is done. It's done until the end of the season. The Canucks now are in a position where, look, they're going to get back Dakota Joshua, a guy who's integral to their third line with Teddy Bluger and Connor Garland. You're also going to get Carson Soucy back. You're going to get Tyler Myers back. You're going to get big body defensemen who know how to play physical hockey. This is one of the biggest decors in the NHL. I believe now, and here's the thing, their schedule is super, super light come March. Yes, Thatcher Demko is out for a little bit. We don't know how long the severity that's going to be, but they've pretty much locked up the Pacific Division. They're going to have a top 2 seed in the Western Conference. I don't either they could play in Nashville or LA. I think Vegas will jump back in. I think we're set up for a Vegas Edmonton first round, which will be epic. But the Canucks right now have the best chance. But I'm not going to sleep on Winnipeg, and here's why. If they avoid Dallas in the first round and they can play Colorado, right? Yes, Colorado has McKinnon and Makar, but the Jets are deep, Stevie. They are a deep, deep roster. I'm looking at it right now. Just down the middle, they have guys like Scheifele, Monahan, Lowry, Nemestikov, right? Then on defense, look, Morrissey, DeMello, Brennan Dillon, Pion. It's not like they're not big names, but they play a structured game. But also, they have something Colorado doesn't have. They have one of the best goalies in the NHL, Connor Hellebuck. And would it not surprise you at all if Hellebuck goes into Colorado and steals a game or two in a series? That can give the Jets the edge in a first round matchup.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me at all. I was the one, we were talking last week about
Mhm.
which teams need to do what at the deadline. My big thing for Colorado was, they need to maybe get a little deeper on defense, and they did that. They added Sean Walker. But the other thing I said that they needed to do was address goaltending. And really, I don't think they did that. They
Mhm.
didn't do anything with that position. And that
Yeah.
to me is a major question mark, because you don't want to go into that series already trying to make up for the mismatch in net. What helps lift up mediocre to below average offenses like the one we've seen with the Winnipeg Jets this year? It's bad goaltending. So that could be the ultimate equalizer in this series.
Mhm.
Colorado winning 5-4, 6-4 every night in the playoffs is not a successful strategy. When was the last time we've seen a team do that? It
Mhm.
just doesn't fly in the postseason. So that's still something I'm worried about. So I agree with you. I could see Winnipeg upsetting Colorado, especially if they get home ice. Home ice is key. Winning in Colorado has been a very difficult task for teams this year, and I don't think Winnipeg or anybody really can overcome that. I think that home ice advantage is real, but they won't have it for the whole playoffs.
I'm fired up. The playoffs are what, a month or so away, about 5 weeks away from starting. It's gonna be great, and the best part is there's gonna be a whole lot of upsets, I think, in that first round, barring the Canucks. But let's talk about tonight. 2 games on the slate tonight in the NHL. Sorry, 3 games. Excuse me. Washington Capitals taking on those Jets. The Bruins taking on the Blues, and the Devils and the Rangers. Stevie, what are your best bets for tonight?
My best bets for tonight, I'm looking at the props, and I look at that Winnipeg Jets game against the Washington Capitals. The game totals at 5.5. They're not
Mhm.
expecting a whole lot of offense, so I'm not going to expect a whole lot of offense. I'm going to fade Max Pacioretty. I'm going to bet him to not score a point at
Mhm.
minus 134. He doesn't play on the power play, and the Jets allowed the fewest goals against at 5-on-5. So I'll gladly fade Max Pacioretty there. Elsewhere, the highest game total of the night, the only game with a 6.5 goal total, is between the Rangers and Devils. Artemi Panarin, he leads the Blue Shirts in points this year,
Mhm.
87. He's a full 27 points up on the next closest player. I'm expecting him to have a big night against a Devils team that has struggled in net all year. I'm betting Panarin to score 2+ points at plus 135.
I got one pick for you. I think the Winnipeg Jets were embarrassed on Saturday in Vegas. I'm taking the Jets puck line. I think they roll right over the Washington Capitals tonight. Stevie, thank you very much for your time. We will talk to you on Wednesday, and you can get back to watching Twitter to see what your Buffalo Bills are going to do in free agency.
Sounds good, Justin. My thumbs appreciate this because it's a nice break from all the scrolling they've done today. So thank you.